You for sure don't want to forget to tension your blade because it will spin your blade and start cutting a little bit. It will dive, and the second time I ever milled, I actually forgot to tension my blade and started sawing, and it dove down into the log and popped off of its track. Thankfully, I didn't damage anything, but that can kink your blade and damage a brand new blade for you. Now let's go ahead and open up the sawmill guard, and we'll go ahead and turn these pulleys the direction that the blade goes and spin it about a dozen times just to make good and sure that that blade doesn't want to come off. If it looks like it's trying to come off, not staying dead center on these pulleys, go ahead and call the manufacturer or look at your manual to fix the tracking on your particular sawmill. Your sawmill should be tracking well with it brand new, but not always. Now that we know our sawmill's tracking good, let's go ahead and add our lubricant. If I'm cutting hardwoods, I just run straight water, but Woodland Mills recommends a quarter cup of soap to 1 tank if you're cutting pine. Alright, now we're ready for a log. Now for your very first log, don't go grab your nice walnut or spalted maple that you got. Get something that's a little small and maybe not the greatest quality, just kind of as a practice log. But don't forget to raise your log stops. When I was first starting out, I forgot a couple of times and rolled the log right off the back of the sawmill. You'll also want to set your lube amount. I find that a nice slow dribble like this works good. But if you put it on YouTube, you'll have people critiquing you and telling you you're putting too much water on it. I found I can turn it wide open and still be fine, and I turned it off when I've been cutting green logs, and that was fine too. You just want to make sure your blade stays cool. If you have log stops like these or similar, a piece of PVC pipe can make turning the log easier. Now this log has a pretty good swoop to it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it where the swoop goes down and the ends point up. I believe those are called the horns. You want to keep your log heart, the center of the log, as level as possible on your bed. So since that end is bigger, we'll need to lift up the smaller end. The reason you want to keep that heart in the center, because I'm going to cut a 6x6 out of this, it helps prevent warping. You can get what's called a toe board. I actually have one, just not installed on the mill yet. But for small logs, it works just fine just using your cant hook to lift up your log and sliding in a piece of wood. That may not be quite enough. I'm going to do another one. Alright, we're ready for the first cut. You can measure where the tape measure, but the way I like doing it is I just sight down my blade, and I try to get my blade to cut an inch lower than the lowest point of the log. When you're cutting with a brand new blade, you should be pushing through this log very easily. And once it starts cutting hard, which that'll depend on what kind of logs you're sawing and how many, but you should be able to get 4, 5, 6 logs, hardwood logs out of one blade, maybe even more. But once you can tell that it's starting to get dull, go ahead and change that blade. Because if you don't change it, the dullness will make your blade heat up, which will warp your blade and make it dive or climb in your log. It can also make your blade more brittle because of the heat and tendency to break warp. At this point, a lot of sawyers will turn the log 90 degrees and put the flat part against your log stops, but I like turning it 180 degrees and put the flat side down against the sawmill bed. And we'll do the same thing as we did on the other side. Alright, now we're going to flip our log with a flat side against our log stops, and this is where you'll see why it's critical to have your log stops square. If you put your mill together according to your manual, I'm sure you know that already, and squared up your log stop. Once you turn your log to a new side, you need to get that heart level again. So do the same thing we did before. Alright, let's flip it again and square off the last side. And always try to remember lower your log stops, but you will hit them at some point. But now, to make sure we don't hit it for the rest of the log, go ahead and lower your log stop as far down as you can, maybe sticking up 1/4 of an inch, just enough to catch your log. Alright, we've got us a 7x7 beam here. And at this point, before you do anything else, before you go cut this into boards, you want to measure this cross corner and make sure that you're cutting your cant square. Now I did not check and make sure my saw is cutting square before this video, so it's time to check mine anyway, and mine could be off. So let's see what this is. This is 9 and 15/16 and 9 and just barely 7/8. So I'm actually a little bit out of square. That's not bad enough that it means that my log stops are out of square or that my head's out of square. It could just mean that I had a little bit of sawdust under it or whatnot. That's square enough for my purposes. It's up to you. If you'd want to make yours square than that.